Live from Lincoln and broadcasting across the state of Nebraska, it's the Average Joe Sports Show. This is the place for Husker sports with the biggest names, the best interviews, and all the inside scoops.
I got a front row seat with a big tub of buttered popcorn and a greasy half-live chicken leg.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Weekend edition is here with the Average Joe Sports Show. That is Mr. Mark Kraynak, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. We invite you to subscribe and check us out on YouTube with the Average Joe Sports Show, AJ Sports Radio on Twitter. Can watch also on KFOR Facebook. 1 week we get to invade downtown Lincoln for what is going to be more of a spring game. Anxious to get Kraynak's thoughts on that. Bill, your take as well with the Rhule tweak this week. Elijah and I have spent some time on it this week as well, and we invite you down to the Single Barrel inside the Graduate 9th and P. Our home base.
We're pre-gaming that?
We're pre-gaming
the non-game game?
We had a hope and a prayer and a Hail Mary that there may be some tackle football on Saturday. So Friday we'll be there as you make your trip into Lincoln from 4 to 6, the Average Joe Road Show Friday. And whiskey, 200 plus whiskeys to choose from. It's your friends with the Single Barrel.
Ooh. Some of us are pre-gaming the yard sale, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, smart.
And apparently some of us have thrown down some fireball this morning, from what I understand.
This is not true. This is not true. False allegations. Some fireball before the Stars game last night. Stars take the first game in the second round of the Clark Cup playoffs. Comeback, hell of a comeback in the third period.
And Elijah, we're going to need you to stand up, son, and walk a straight line behind the studio chair.
I'll do my alphabet backwards.
I couldn't do it sober. So,
but an unfair test.
Lot to get into, but find us at the Single Barrel Friday 4 to 6 with the Average Joe Sports Show, and then Saturday, the weekend edition live, a flex time from 11 to 1 before we invade Memorial Stadium. Always appreciate you in the stream. We'll get our starting 5 shout-outs going. So a lot to cover with Coach Rhule, his comments. Husker baseball takes one on the chin again. Is there a David Stone watch for Nebraska football in the portal? Vogues has family pictures, so no Brandon Vogel this morning. He is on assignment.
So he's at Sears this morning? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, but let's be honest. As funny as the Carl Bow Cat ensemble was with the 80s, all right, front pick and then the side mugshot / starry whatever concoction that was at some of the major department stores in the 1980s. I hope the family picture goes well for Vogues. I hope there's no unhappy faces that are etched in time. But we remember the old family pics, getting together with all the grandparents, all the grandkids. I mean, I still remember having to suit up for that at the old Schmidt gathering in the mid-'80s. It was pretty cool. It hung proudly on Grandma and Grandpa Schmidt's wall for years. So Vogues is doing the picture thing. The Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, will be by in probably about 30 minutes or so. Kraynak, I gotta ask you, dude, because you are a good papa. You always bring your little one, not so little anymore, to as many Husker events as you can. And I want to throw this out to you. More or less likely, from kind of the folks you're touching base with, all the other baseball dads, to show up next Saturday, now that there's going to be a bit of a scrimmage. It's a far cry from a year ago where it was the unveiling of Dylan Raiola. It's a far cry from Bobby Newcomb. It's a far cry from Bill Callahan's "Oh no, there's motion." It's a far cry from the Adrian Martinez showcase. That said, people crave football, and this is your appetizer till August.
I don't know. I got to find more details.
That tone's perfect. I don't know.
I'm not mad about it. Like, go ahead, Rhule. Like, that's fine. He's just like, and it makes sense. It's like, hey, you can scrimmage a certain amount of times during the spring. Why not do it with people there, but not on TV? Like, okay, that's fine. And why not maybe get your top flight guys hurt? And since it's like, it all makes sense on why he's doing it. I'm just wondering logistically how it's actually going to go, because it's basically, is it going to interrupt field day? Like, what are we doing? Because there's the, like, that's what I'm picturing.
Do we start with the scrimmage and then get to the skills competition, or do we got to wait till the end? Like the, you're waiting on the old encore from Dave Matthews,
or is it going to be kind of like when you're at a college basketball game and the fourth graders get to come out and play at halftime, where it's just a game just breaks out in the middle of nowhere, right? They come out onto the court and they go. Is that how it's going to be? Where it's like, everybody clear out, football time. And then they all just, I don't know. And then if it's not going to be televised, are you going to have like a full chain gang? Are you going to have full referees? Are you going to have like announcers like ball carried by? It's just, I don't know. I don't, right? Especially if it's going to be these obscure guys that are probably going to get cut. Yeah. So I don't know. It's cool. I understand why he's doing it. I wouldn't say it makes me more likely to go. You know what I'm saying? Unless details come out and they're saying, hey, 90 minutes, full tackle, like full pads.
Here are your teams.
Yeah. Here are your teams. These guys are getting. TJ Lateef is starting for one.
I'm that's kind of piqued my interest. I mean, I want to see Marcos and I want to see Lateef throw the football. I mean, I kind of want to see what the next wave of quarterbacks look like a little bit. Vic in Denver was chiming in the stream and said he ain't driving from Denver. That means there's no whiskey delivery. We'll see you next time, Vic.
I don't think there's any chance you see the guys like Davila, the guys like Lateef. There's no way, right? Like, it just with what Matt Rhule
who's playing quarterback then.
Well, he's been saying that. Wait, Graham's your backup right now. He's your backup.
But what Matt Rhule said earlier, I don't think you're worried about Jalen Gramstad getting some big portal offer from elsewhere, and that's the concern from Rhule right now. Is you don't want injuries, and you don't want other teams being able to see your young talent in a spring game, regardless if it's on TV or not. Doesn't matter. There's going to find a way for people to, whether it's scouts, whether it's people talking to their friends in Nebraska. Hey, go check out this guy for me. We need a quarterback. Like, they're going to find a way to get eyes on those guys, and Matt Rhule wants to avoid that. It's the paranoid life of a college football coach right now.
Which go the Belichick route and don't put numbers on the jerseys.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah,
that's what he's been doing.
Is this going to interrupt like Elijah Pritchett and versus Malcolm Hartzog in the spoon race, like egg race? Like, what?
Wow, you've thought
what
this
is happening?
out. You have thought this out with all the activities and the skills competition.
Yeah, I just race.
I just picture that instead of everything on the field, that they're now going to take all of those. I said it's going to be like the Battle of the Network Stars from back in the 70s, where you have all these little competitions. Now you just have to put those around a field. And many years ago, they used to do the 6-man championships at Memorial Stadium, and they put down tape because those fields are like 80 yards long. So just put the tape down on the middle of the field, move all of the obstacle courses or the dog track with the ramps and the tunnel and the hurdles, and put those around and just have a circus going on. All right. All your first and second teamers can do the ramps and the tunnel and the hurdle or the tug of war, the spoon race, all of that stuff. But in the middle of the field,
guess my
have
weight.
About a 60-yard mini field and let those guys play.
How about a Raiola? Guess my weight. That would be good. That's been a thing. Why not? Come on.
Enter your name in the raffle. Love that. Whenever Bill said dog track, though, he was thinking like, you were thinking like the tunnel and everything. I was thinking get the Greyhounds out there.
Yeah.
Wagers in.
Well, that might be another one. Run around, but I do like have Dylan Raiola guess your weight.
That's so not nice. That's fun. Kraynak, God love you. So I got to go
he's
back.
Fine. I think Viola is. I'm not fat shaming the guy. I think me of all people should not be doing that. I'm just saying I think he is. I think that'd be fun. Imagine the lines. You want to raise money for NIL? I mean, come on. You have to guess it down to the percentage point. You know.
No, I think we do it the other way around.
Trev Albert's dunk tank.
James is furious this morning. I love it. Wow.
Trev Albert's dunk tank.
Well, hey, that would ensure people coming up from College Station.
No. Let's set it up 10 feet high and forget the water.
Yeah, Trev gets marched in like he's the boss in Christmas Vacation. He gets marched in with a big red bow on.
People know who's freaking
all
out
around for that one.
You know who's freaking out? And Elijah, you were on a Husker Vision crew. I was never actually on the crew, but I've been on crews. We've all been on crews. Those people are freaking out right now. What in the hell are they preparing for right now? Like, where are their camera runs going? Who's on which camera, right? Are there spotters? Like, if you're going to do a football game or even a scrimmage is a production. And even at the junior high level, you got to have a lot of freaking coordination going on to run a scrimmage or run a game. Equipment guys, all kinds of stuff has to happen for that. Like, those people are freaking out right now. Like, well, was planning on doing something this weekend, but nope. They're all in meetings trying to figure it out. They're like, Rhule, what the hell do you want? You know, what are we doing? Like, oh, no, we got to scrimmage the guys, everybody's scrambling to figure it out.
Dole, are the kids, college kids doing anything Saturday?
Well, there's soccer, there's volleyball, there's
but I mean football related.
Well, yeah, I'm sure all of that stuff is now kind of an all hands on deck. Hey, we got stuff to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're about to be conscripts drafted into the production, man.
Yeah. Look, this just kind of shows the power of Matt Rhule.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna have a little scrimmage. What?
Hey, thank you is what I say. Thank you.
Yeah, but I don't know who all was in on what was said at the press conference. Did he say something to Troy Dannon? Hey, by the way, we're going to scrimmage a little bit. And Keith Mann, hey, by the way, I'm going to make this announcement. And who all was in? Because concessions. Does the Aramark contract start now, or is it the old concessions?
Can I get beer?
Is it all hands on deck at every Runza in town and Val's? Fairbury brand hot dogs. Who's getting the orange slices? I mean, it's all hands on deck as to how thing's going to get pulled off, because if they were planning on having, 10, 15,000 people there, I would assume that's not going to double, but another 5, 10,000 people, that's a lot of extra work, right?
It'll bump a little bit with this. And you've got the walk-on portion of this, and Elijah brought this up yesterday, and I want to get your guys' take. There was a strong Makovica poll for favorite walk-on, and Doleman, your favorite walk-on ever at Nebraska, and Mark, your favorite walk-on. Because that's the other part of this Saturday, is you get to send guys off that have just absolutely sold out for the program because they love it.
That's asking me which one is my favorite child. You almost have to go
depends
by
on the day. A lot of the weekend, it's none at the Schmidt house. You only got one to choose.
It kind of goes by eras to a certain extent. Most famous walk-on probably of all time is I Am Hip.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the first one where people were like, what's this walk-on thing? And oh, by the way, it's a pretty catchy name. And that, not that Nebraska hadn't had walk-ons in the 50s, 60s, whatever, but when I Am Hip exploded from Chapin, South Carolina, and made national news, that's what I think really brought notoriety to Nebraska's program and the importance of the walk-ons. And then you discover he's not the only one, right? Isaiah Moses hit. But I think that's the one that brought the fame to it. The Makovic brothers, they always will probably stand out because they dominated the fullback position for so long. Jared Thomas is probably my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
The story of him being a guy from St. John's or St. John, Indiana, going to go either work in the steel mill, maybe go play junior college football, gets, rejected by Purdue, and a former Nebraska strength coach calls Charlie and says, "Hey, this guy's a pretty hard worker. You might want to, give him a shot." And he ends up being a 1 or 2-time All-American, a great leader, played in the NFL, and just a really, really good guy. That was at the Husker Vision time when those guys would come up frequently, so I got to know them a little bit better. But he's one. John Vedrill's tougher than hell as a wingback. Yeah. He stoned some guy from Washington State in that game in '95, and it took them both out of the game. But it was a hit. It was a peeled back block on their best defensive player, a linebacker, and set the tone for the game. Neither one returned, but he was tough as hell. Dave Sizes, there's just so many that played key roles and busted their asses, either to be starters or make sure that those starters were better. But those are a few off the top of my head that I remember.
In the post championship world, you named off a ton of great ones. In the post championship era, was it Dane Todd? Was that the one that was like 5'6"? And who was the cat that was from Lincoln? He was like 5'6", and he was a special teams demon.
Oh, the Southeast kid, the guy, number 24. He's a Southeast kid.
Rigoni?
He was Riggs.
Yes,
Rigoni.
Brandon Rigoni. Like he was pretty amazing. I mean, that dude was just a little bowling ball and freaking heat-seeking missile on special teams.
I think Dane was scholarship. He had a good group from that Southeast championship squad, but
yeah, you'll put them.
I got to go.
Trevor Roach.
Roach was money, linebacker out of Elkhorn. I like Janovich.
Yeah. Oh, of course, Jano. And you can't forget the Terminator, which, if you weren't around in the era, you wouldn't know. But Matt Turman, he
wasn't a 5-star.
No,
I'm kidding.
I don't believe so.
I kid.
Brandon Riley, Foltz, Spencer Long. I mean, they had some good walk-ons post-title run.
But the Terminator and the Count of Monte Cristo in the early days of Husker Vision, right? Like where graphics, like if you wanted to create some sort of special effect graphic, like you're talking about probably 3 days of work and 4 days of render time just to get some sunglasses to appear on Matt Turman to look like the Terminator. And he would come in. And those were also just more comfortable times as a Husker fan because, you'd be up by 35 or 40 and you're like, oh, the Terminator's coming in. Awesome. He gets to play the whole fourth quarter, and then same with Monte Cristo. You would just get excited when those guys came in.
Let's get our starting 5 shout outs here. The weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. Uncle Larry in from Pensacola. Uncle Larry, good to have you. Black Hills Brennan, my favorite walk-on in the last 6 years was Scott Frost. The fan base walked all over him after every one score loss. Black Hills Brennan, I love the top rope action. That's not what I meant, but there's no bad answers, right? Something like that. The other Dave is here. Kobe is in. Kobe, not a fan of the pitching decision in the 9th with Nebraska baseball. We have plenty of time for Husker baseball. We'll get to Kobe. Hear you, man. Walter is in south of Philly. Since last Friday, I've heard the name Nico over 26,000 times. Justin is here. Justin, good to have you. NASCAR Eric, check it in. NASCAR Eric, good to have you. Black Hills Brennan, as previously mentioned. And Dr. Octagon has asked the question here. Let's go, gentlemen. Has Bill made his Harburg for the Mackey T-shirts list yet? That's pretty.
What happens if he's just a tight end and a defensive end? Then what?
You just it's double the pleasure on the T-shirts.
Lombardi.
Okay. Is there a two-way end award?
I don't
Mackey
know.
and Lombardi. The Mackey party.
Two for two. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Morning, gents. Good weekend to sign up with 1890 and help bring 5-star David Stone. Talented defensive tackle from Oklahoma. Patrick is in. Funky Giblets is here. Tuck in. Vic, again, not driving from Denver for maybe football. James is here. Had the Trev Alberts suggestion with the dunk tank. Captain, good to have you, Captain. Good to check in, brother. And who else is here? Buck 380 says morning. So more of your comments, more of your time on the stream. Find us on YouTube, and we'll do Sunday Live tomorrow at 10:30. Back to the dunk take, and this is off of the just my internal thought. I need to ask Bill, because Bill probably watched it live. Would you draft Catherine Bach or Linda Carter when it came to the Battle of the Network Stars?
Oh. Well, the amount of training Linda Carter probably had to do for Wonder Woman,
He had to balance 47 beer bottles at the Boar's Nest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But don't forget Heather Thomas, in the police training that,
Was she on TJ Hooker? Or was that the Fall Guy?
Might have been both. They were all on the same show, basically, back in the 70s crime drama era.
Fall Guy was money.
The Fall Guy Airwolf era was just where it was at.
And Elijah's like, someone put a gun in my mouth. I don't know
what about Blue Thunder? Nobody talks enough about Blue Thunder. Oh my God.
Elijah's glazing over. Okay.
Elijah, Battle of the Network Stars. What is that?
Elijah, Airwolf and Blue Thunder were attack helicopter based. I guess, what do you call them?
They're not safe words in Berlin.
Yeah. It was like a whole, how now there is, like the FBI shows and the cop shows or whatever. These were like attack helicopter pilots who were vigilantes who had they had an Apache helicopter, and they were just helping to save the world.
This is real.
Incredible. Yeah. Airwolf and Blue Thunder. It was like competing attack helicopter shows.
It's two separate shows. They're both helicopter vigilantes.
Yeah. One was Airwolf, and Airwolf was a God. I don't know exactly what kind of helicopter it was. It wasn't an Apache, I don't believe, because I think the Blue Thunder was an Apache. But the Gatling guns, the missile, the rocket launchers, like full on military grade attack helicopters, and they would usually have to stop some sort of international underground crime ring.
There was a terror cell.
Yeah.
And all solved in 48 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By an attack helicopter. Yeah, it was great.
Okay. I'm just not impressed.
Fair doesn't count. That's a class all to herself.
That would actually kill right now, though, honestly. If you brought back an attack helicopter based show, why not?
Well,
MacGyver.
Let's spend a little bit of time here. Do you go and think about David Stone, fellas? Let's get into this portal discussion here for a moment. Kid had pretty good numbers, played all 13 games for Oklahoma. I don't know how real it is. I know there's an offensive lineman from Washington that's out there as well. And you don't want to upset your apple cart with guys that have been busting it to make your 53-man rotation, but you don't stand pat either. You have one more shot to go add. And if we're talking position groups, I think we like the potential of the defensive line. There's also the reality of what you lost that'll be drafted next Saturday. All right. So do you have enough? Do you ever have enough is the question. And there's got to be fit. There's got to be understanding. There's talent. Yeah, all those things. This Stone player can't go to the SEC. He can't inter-conference transfer. But, I mean, Oregon was kind of on his short list. So was Michigan State. And I don't think Nebraska was really, honestly, even on the radar initially. Not that they can't get back on again.
Is this my mind goes to money. Is this a kind of a Nico situation where I want the bag and I want an extra bag and I'm not getting it now, so I'm gone.
I think
now
it's,
the spring ball is over with. You're not paying me with what I believe. So this is kind of a quiet holdout or whatever. And Oklahoma say, I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but to have it happen now, and then it's like, okay, we can't do it the way Nico and his people did it. So we're just going to quietly go away as opposed to having this holdout situation. And it's interesting. Oregon comes up with nearly every major transfer portal addition. Like, what is he, a 4 or 5 star? Okay, well, we know Oregon's in. Look for Ohio State because they're the ones who have the biggest bags, apparently. But is this a deal where he goes through spring ball and says to Oklahoma, I want more money? Or is it a deal where there's no longer a fit? He didn't perform, and Oklahoma's saying, hey, you're not going to be guaranteed a position. I don't know, but it just seems like when 5 stars go in, the first thought is this a money type holdout situation? And who's going to come with the biggest bag next? And if you're Nebraska at some point, and not just Nebraska, but others, maybe this was last week, I said it, if you're a developmental program, you have to be, I think you have to be committed to at least that principle that we brought you in and we're going to develop you into a great player. I love the Van Poppel press conference that he had, because he certainly could have checked out last year when Nebraska said, we're gonna only play you 4 games in redshirt in your second season. So, and he's sticking around and he's going to develop. And you bring in another player at this stage and the money's going to get out. And I've talked to student athletes recently, especially in the wake of the Nico stuff. The money's changing locker rooms. And that's not just my speculation. That's what I'm being told. And especially in basketball, just go look at Kansas. So all of a sudden you bring in a former 5-star at Oklahoma, word's going to get around how much he's making, and it could be divisive. We're not developing. We're just bringing in. It's mercenary. If Nebraska wants to be a developmental program, you got to be committed to those who are committed to you and develop them and make them into the players you said you were going to.
I don't know that it's a playing time thing. There's a lot of things you can say about Venables and their transition to the SEC, but defensively, like, that guy's always kind of been on it. He's been a dude defensively as a coordinator, and Oklahoma was going to lean on Stone quite a bit. Like, he was going to be one of the guys. So I don't think it's a playing time. I think it might be part of the leverage and how coveted. Yes, a guy that performed well with a couple of TFLs and a sack and minimal snaps first and foremost. So the guy, it kind of reminds me of what Keona did. You saw flashes from a talent early in their career, but I think there's such a market right now that, yeah, I think you can go get doubled what you'd be getting. And I don't think Oklahoma's awful in the NIL world. I honestly look at it, and I mean, there's just not a lot of upside, quite honestly, where Oklahoma's living now. I mean, you're not Mississippi State. I get that, but everyone else is pretty damn good in the conference. And sure, you beat Bama last year, but you really had to fight to get to 6-6. There was a shot that you weren't going to get there and get to bowl eligibility. So I think Oklahoma's just down, and they've got a bit of a mess with what they're doing at quarterback. I know they're trying to fix it, but they're a far cry from, well, what they were, with being a top 5, top 8 program, and you transition conferences. So I think he's just kind of looking at that part of the picture as well, and also, yes, the financial side of it. Probably 70-30 money versus what team am I going to be on?
if you look at what Rhule has to decide right around this time, that's the 105, right? And I'm sure the last 10 to 15 are tough decisions, right? Those are kind of toss-ups. You probably have a pretty good idea of your top 60, 70, I'm guessing, right? Then after that, it's a lot of dudes and it's projection, right? Because you have to figure out if some of these guys are like, oh, it might not be good now, but put on 20 pounds in the last year, puts on another 20. Wow, now we're cooking. So it's going to be tough. So this is all happening while that is happening, while the 105 is new. So your bar for bringing somebody in better be really high.
Well, what do you have?
Especially to Bill's point too about, if it's going to be a sweepstakes situation and you have to pay the guy a lot and everybody knows that dude better be a dude. He better show up into that locker room after you're a team of 105 and you saw maybe 10 of your buddies get cut that you thought were pretty good. And then this cat comes in and he's a clown. That ain't going to work. Right. So your bar better be really high. You got to be sort of Sierra right, at least. Right. It better be somebody who is a projected starter or somebody who competes for it the second they walk in with no questions asked. So is David Stone that guy? I don't know enough about him. I haven't watched him enough to know if he's that dude or not. And then at his position, is that a huge position of need? I guess it kind of always is, to some degree. Like when it comes to the trenches, it's just sort of like you kind of can't have enough. Can't have enough big dudes on either side of the line.
Well, and Matt Rhule said it pretty clearly on Thursday, and he said it a couple times this offseason. He repeated himself when he said it on Thursday. In the portal, he said he learned this from the NFL. The desperate team sets the market. And that's going to be the question here with this spring portal window. Nebraska, in order to get guys, is going to have to be the desperate team. You're going to have to go and outpay teams. You saw that in the winter. You're going to see it again in the spring. Nebraska has not been a first-round factory in recent years. They have not been a 10-win factory in recent years. There's going to be a lot of teams out there in the market that have been churning out first-round picks that are college football playoff contenders year in, year out. Nebraska hasn't been that. So in order to go get guys, they have to set the market. They have to be desperate. I think that's the question here in the spring is at what positions are they going to be desperate to go get a guy? What positions are they going to be willing to go and outpay the other Power 4 teams that are going to be in? Because that's who Nebraska's competing with. They're competing with, as you laid it out earlier, the Oregons, the Ohio States, the Georgias, the who's who of college football. So with that in mind, where on their football team is Matt Rhule going to be willing to go out and be desperate and potentially overpay in the spring portal window because you need a guy?
Hunter.
Well, we'll get to the rugby side of things here, but I think your lines of scrimmage, you're always kind of keeping your eyes open, and talent is your difference maker on that line. Coachability's your difference maker, and you got to walk that fine line. And just got some info from a couple of folks in this that have some knowledge of David Stone's situation, and it sounds like Oklahoma cut his pay from his freshman year. Had a good spring, was pretty upbeat in some of the comments I read from the Daily Oklahoman, and that OU told him they just needed to spend the money elsewhere. So you've got a scorned situation here.
That will do it.
Yeah, yes, it will.
Other 5-star defensive linemen are making how much, and you're going to do what to mine?
And I didn't go Gerald McCoy for you as a true freshman. Sorry, but I did play pretty well.
Look, how do you not find some dude in Norman or Edmond,
Big Red Auto,
who's got a car dealership next to a McDonald's and get a Happy Meal and say, okay, we're cutting your official NIL dollars, but why don't you go see Jim Bob over at X&X dealership and he'll take care of you, right?
It's taking care of past quarterbacks,
right? That's it's happening anyway. The Happy Meals under the table are back. Even though you can get your NIL deal and your revenue sharings and all that, people are going, wait a minute, I got to pay taxes on this. Could I just pick up one of those envelopes that my uncle used to get when he played at SMU so that nobody knows to this day? they couldn't find somebody for David Stone that could take care of him on the side. Come on.
I think now is a good time to share with young Elijah something very important.
What?
You'll see. Okay.
Are we going back to Catherine Bach and Linda Carter?
Here's Airwolf.
Okay. Kraynak has given two F's about this portal discussion. He has been researching Airwolf still photography.
And then here's Blue Thunder.
I was not familiar.
I believe that's Dana Carvey. Did you know that Dana Carvey was on Blue Thunder?
Is that Dick Butkus?
Dick Butkus and Bubba Smith.
Bubba Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dana Carvey. What? I didn't realize Dana Carvey was on that. Airwolf?
What happened to the guy's eye?
I think that was Ernest Borgnine.
There was a lot of patches in 80s television. A lot of eye patches. Remember that? There really were. There's, I would say 1 out of every 4 shows had somebody with an eye patch. Even though I've only seen in like real life, maybe 4 people on Earth.
This kind of leads me into the question that I've been waiting on all week. Speaking of eye patches, I think of the Pirate when I think of eye patches. Do you see the tweet this week on Mike Leach wrestling with the idea of having a little person on his team?
No.
And throwing when it came to a goal line situation, throwing a little person over the goal line. Jesus. I'm not kidding.
I thought that was a meme.
No, this was apparently uttered in a team meeting, like they were discussing it. The quote is, "Aside from the optics, tell me why this couldn't work."
Just bring on Eddie Goodell and launch him over the goal line.
Hey, Billy Barty still has some eligibility when he's not on Sigmund and the Sea Monster.
Dorf on football? Is that what we're doing?
Right.
So this is legit. He contemplates in a team meeting. What if we get some little fella to come out and dot the lowercase I?
Yeah.
And toss him. The NFL wants to ban the brotherly shove. I refuse to say tush push. So Mike Leach wants to throw somebody out of the lowercase I over the goal line to get touchdowns or first downs.
I'm just imagining Mike Leach on the recruiting trail. Like, I need the next Peter Dinklage. Where's he at?
Great voice, better aerodynamics.
Okay, okay. Can their arms wrap all the way around the football?
Wow. Yes.
I mean, you get popped by a linebacker, you better toss that guy high.
Here's the question.
I'm waiting for Bill Doleman to make some sort of reference here to Dowdell going airborne at the 3-yard line against Ohio.
Yeah.
Dinklage would have cleared that safety.
If Ty Robinson threw him, easily.
Gary Sharp is now with us.
Could you tuck said player underneath the arm of Elijah Judy and let him?
I don't know. Gary, we're talking about the.
I don't even have to know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, Leach, our friend the Pirate, having to be talked down from putting a small person in the backfield to throw them over the goal line.
Yes, Mark.
Gary, before we get cracking here, Airwolf or Blue Thunder?
Blue
Which
Thunder.
one?
Blue Thunder.
Really?
Never watched Blue Thunder.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were a little more. You were the kind of the underdog helicopter TV series fan.
I mean, that guy up in the upper right. That's I mean, how can you not go wrong with him? Airwolf to me was a little bit too extreme. Like, I didn't believe it, but yes, I believe Blue Thunder.
Yeah, because Blue Thunder was a police helicopter. That was a police situation.
Airwolf was
with Gatling guns. That would go over well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you date night last night? You and the fiance did a double dip of Airwolf and Blue Thunder?
No, she should be so fortunate. Maybe another time.
Sharpie, do you believe the Leach story?
Yes.
Yeah.
But here's the question: like, if that happens, and the defensive player catches the ball and the player and returns it, is it a touchdown or for 2?
Catches the player.
Well, I think it's
just tucks him under his arm.
Catch.
There's forward progress there, though, right? But if they're still in the air, I don't know.
This is the kind of stuff that I'm expecting for the Husker games, right? The carnival atmosphere.
Wall Street at the 50.
Yeah, the carnival atmosphere. You got to guess Raiola's weight. You got to throw the little
Instead
person
of a little
over the
person,
goal line.
No, I think I think we twist the Raiola thing. It's not guess his weight. It's you let him twist guess other people's weight.
Well, I've told the story of the gentleman in the Prairie Life locker room that when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, was convinced he could guess my weight. He could. It was really impressive, but
so he did guess your weight?
Yeah, he about nailed it. Yeah, it was.
I'm sure he did.
Schmidt.
Back then, you just thought he was a friendly guy. Nowadays, he's on the news.
In the old steam room.
Yeah.
He was just in a towel, and he's like,
"Oh my god, this is getting more disturbing all the time."
It is crazy.
Hey, boy, let me guess your weight.
Like, hey, it is crazy. The older you get in a locker room, the less you wear. Like if you ever play, you've all had the opportunity.
It's the wrong answer, though.
Yeah. Like if you're playing golf, and you might have that opportunity to play at a nice place where they have like a locker room, and people feel the need to shower after a 18 whole round. Yeah, the older you get, the less you wear. And I think it probably should be opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer you hang out in that room.
I'm just saying, I mean, you know what? Nudity is not for everybody. All right. Thanks, Elijah.
Yeah, that's this PSA brought to you by the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. Sharpie, what's your feel? What's the feedback you guys have had this week on your show, with more so in reference to Rhule saying, all right, there's going to be live football? That makes me a little more happy about Saturday. That'll be great. But is it changed some minds? I mean, are your listeners more likely to attend now, or is it still just still thinking about it?
Well, I think we have there. So I believe the plan is like 3 to 5 series.
Okay.
It's not like it's going to go into this whole grandiose game. I think, and I said this on my air, and there was people got a little heated.
Like Captain, and Captain's here.
Yeah, Captain was heated. We had a good conversation. He called in. This, if they're going to increase the attendance, it's not going to be money that would be like, oh my God, this is awesome. I think you have a coach who maybe just had a moment, and he also has 28 guys that he has to cut.
Mm-hmm.
And he, all you need to know, if you think this is some okey doke going on, his director of operations and his players didn't know this was going to happen until the players didn't know until he walked out on Thursday to talk to the media. There were a couple of high-ranking officials that were in the room, had no idea that this was happening. I mean, Rhule kind of did this on his own.
Mm-hmm.
So no one went to him and said, hey, we got you know how to create a buzz? And he says, oh, I got it. So I also think we're overthinking this. Okay. It's not going to be, it's an element of the spring game that I think Rhule had a moment. He knows after the Jack McAllister situation, which was a very emotional meeting for him personally. And, who knows what, maybe Rhule's going through a midlife crisis or something, that he knows there's going to be guys that are on his roster right now that are never going to play football again, but they wanted to stick around. And then they thought that they were going to get grandfathered in so they could have at least 1 or 2 more years of their career at Nebraska, whether they take a snap or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has affected him. And, it kind of shows you have a leader who is thinking about the team and actually is like not a robot.
Yeah.
I think Matt Rhule is a human, and he made a human decision that I don't think it's going to impact. I don't think people are going to in droves go, because it's not like it's going to be a full spring game. They're going to play a little live football. The top guys are not going to play. You might get a surprise of a player that says, well, should I go out there and take a couple of snaps? So I think it's just a good insight into the program. is that Rhule feels for his players. You know, you saw the Jacob Bauer video.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they have a special connection, which is probably from the outside we can't appreciate it as much as we get from a video. But I think what he did on Thursday for the players that aren't going to have that opportunity that he thought they would, you know what? You got a good guy running the football program, and don't overthink it.
Well, Gary, let's dive into that Jacob Bauer thing here really fast, because I've seen it a lot on social media. I've heard it said, well, the 105 is the death of the walk-on program. This, I mean, is happening in the era of the 105. Nebraska's going to have to cut down to 105, and they're still finding a way to get a walk-on into practice, get him a scholarship. I mean, do you feel like this is truthfully the end of the walk-on program, the 105, even with what we saw yesterday?
I don't think so. Because remember, you used to be capped at 85. So those extra 20 scholarships, are they going to be, I mean, everybody has the opportunity to be scholarshiped. So you'd have 105 scholarships realistically. I think there will still be, we won't call them walk-ons, but they will be on the roster, and you'll go, okay, back in the day, would they have been a scholarship player, or would they have been technically a walk-on? And I think that's how they'll approach it. So there will still be those players, you know, that are near the, you know, bottom of your roster, I guess the best way to say it, that will still have an opportunity. In this new era of the roster, you're going to have to, you know, realistically get contributions from all 105 at some point during their career. You know, that's what makes the roster construction even more fascinating, is your evaluation and development is going to have to be really, really good. I mean, the programs that are going to be good and sustained in the new era of college football might have to be better on the front end or the back end. And if you guys and if you know what I'm talking about, like, you're going to have to be good with the high school stuff, and then supplement with the portal guys. I'm a big proponent of 80-20. 80% of your roster is high school guys, 20% is portal. But I think you can't have misses. So you're gonna have to be better on the front end of the evaluation. And also, I look at a player and go, okay, he can fit. Okay, he fits what we need. You know, Jack McAllister didn't fit what Nebraska needed.
Yeah,
I think you're going to have
those, and you have to make those decisions sooner than later. You can't. You know, guys are probably going to be forced their decisions. Like, okay, when we get a guy for his third year in the program, he's got to pop. I mean, do we move that timetable up like year 2? He better at least be popping.
Well,
or he might.
You're going to have players who in their first or second year are going to be at another school, and they're going to go in the portal, and then in their third year, they're going to go pop someplace else. So somebody goes to South Dakota State, North Dakota State, or wherever, East Tennessee, and they've developed, they've matured, and now they're in the portal, and they're ready to pop someplace else at the Big 10, SEC, or Big 12 type level. So that's why you're counting on those FCS and Division IIs or whatever programs to develop them. And so they may not pay off where they began, but they're going to pop after they've developed and come to Nebraska. I think in terms of walk-ons, what you're going to probably have are scholarship players. You know, we're not going to get you anything more. We can't get you NIL money. We can't get you, you know, a big deal someplace with some, but come to Nebraska, we'll give you a scholarship. So the scholarship is the new walk-on. That's all you're going to get out of this. Nice training table, good sleep pod, recovery pool, and we'll pay for your schooling. And that's going to be the minimum compensation to play football in college.
Yeah, it'll be those guys like the top 1,000 high school players. You know, you figure there's maybe 50 teams that matter. Each of those teams need to bring in 20 high school guys a year. Your top 1,000 are going to be taken care of within the Power 5 and then, or Power 4, whatever you want to call it now. They'll be fine. But then it's all those other guys. It's all those other ones that are just kind of in a big pot, and they're going to have essentially tryouts at different spots, right? It's almost like the classic form of a tryout. Think of a guy like a David Hufkin, right? He's not anybody's top 1,000 or whatever, but he's a behemoth of a human being. He's 24 years old. He's from Germany. Yeah, we might have a spot for you. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a fascinating time until they figure out what the structure is and who leads that structure. Like the fact that the NCAA has no essentially jurisdiction, enforcement ability, anything over football, and that football is literally just a loose collection of people that don't have any rules, or loose collection of teams. There's nothing like it in anywhere, right? I cannot think of a sports organization or a sports league that has no rules. I mean, it's like they just literally don't. It's crazy. And people can complain and say, "Oh, it's the NCAA," which the NCAA exists at the pleasure of the universities, right? It's their representative. It's like their HOA. I mean, right? Like if you don't like your homeowners association, vote them out. Like that's what they are, right? It's not some random third party. Like it's appointed and funded by the actual member institutions themselves. So like until they figured that out, God only knows. And if a Randy Gregory type and Ndamukong Suh type somehow becomes free and available, you can go get them now. And you should. Like, why wouldn't you?
Sharpie, what's your feel on Marty Brown? It sounds like David Stone is listening to Ohio State right now. The defensive tackle from Oklahoma, our friend Dean Blevins, had weighed in on kind of the disappointment Oklahoma had in Stone, hence the pay cut and maybe his attention to football. It sounded like he kind of ramped up his intensity level this spring, but he's looking elsewhere. Do you feel that Nebraska will make some additions? And I know Rhule's like, look, he's good. He's good with what they got, but you're not ever going to not keep your eyes open.
Yeah, I think you're always monitoring. And if somebody, becomes available, so there's mutual interest. Nebraska didn't recruit Marty out of high school. The only two offers he got were out of MAC schools, and he goes to North Dakota State and he redshirts, which, he's playing behind a good running back room. And then he has the year that he had last year. There's definitely mutual interest. There's also some competition. I mean, he goes into the portal this time of the year, and, there's a lot of FCS guys that went into the portal, and they're more depth pieces. Some are better than others. Like Cincinnati got a starting offensive lineman from South Dakota yesterday who will probably start for them. I don't know that if, let's use Nebraska as an example, Marty Brown comes here, that he starts, that he is over Emmett, but he would be a good depth piece. And it would also tell me that they don't think that Parker and Booth are ready for 2025. But there's definitely mutual interest. But it's not like Nebraska is the front runner. I think there's a few schools that have piqued his interest.
Big Ten, SEC.
I believe that Oklahoma is one of them. Yeah. So, which is, and I know, Jet Tomala of Millard South commits to Iowa State yesterday, and Iowa State's had a run of, Nebraska prospects in the 2026 class. It's also going to be the part of recruiting that has always been there with local kids, and Rhule addressed it earlier in the week, is if you don't see a fit, and I don't think every top player in Nebraska should get a Nebraska offer. Some just are not a fit. But you don't burn bridges. You keep the door open, and they go somewhere else and they prove themselves, and they're looking to come back closer to home. You have that, the door is open for a conversation. And we see that a lot with former Nebraska kids that go elsewhere, have a good year, but then get into the portal and they're looking for somewhere else. And maybe that door is open at Nebraska. So, like Marty Brown is the perfect example of bet on yourself. Maybe, and I never heard him profess that, like him and his twin brother played together at prep, that they were Husker fans, but, in his mind, hey, I'm better than Mac or Miami of Ohio and Ball State. I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to prove it. And good on him. He did. And now he'll have options that he didn't have, 3 years ago.
You think this is the future of in-state recruiting, Gary? That some of the guys that out of high school, they're not good enough for Nebraska. Hey, you let them go off to, and those are Matt Rhule's words, not mine. You let them go off to a place like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, get a couple years of development, try to get them back in the portal. Is that going to be the future of in-state recruiting following what we heard from Rhule on Thursday?
Yeah, and you guys know this. If Nebraska is winning, they can have nobody from Nebraska on the roster. If Nebraska is losing, we go, oh man, why aren't they recruiting in state? But I do think, you know what? It's not like they ignore Nebraska kids. They are relatively aggressive, and their network is better under Rhule because he's relying on more former players that are in the Omaha area coaching or around the state that are coaching, that when they suggest a prospect, they will look at them. I mean, they made some early offers to a couple of players from Omaha Central off of recommendations by Abdul Muhammad. And, you know, they build a good relationship with Omaha Central. It's usually if they don't offer early, if they are one of the last ones, it's probably not on their front. But I think they do a good job of evaluating in state, but they're not going to offer everybody. But if they're winning, we don't go, man, they only have 4 guys that are from Nebraska. If they're losing, we go, man, look at all the guys that get away, you know? But there's another part of this in-state recruiting, and this specifically in Omaha, is Omaha kids that go to Nebraska need to start producing, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we need the city of 1 million people that's got good high school football. They need to start producing when they get to Nebraska. And that's maybe also that's a little bit, if you're the head coach and you're like, we like Omaha, we know we got to recruit Omaha, but man, those kids can't make the jump from high school to college. What are we doing?
Well, and look at some of the early offer guys recently, especially like at Bellevue West, right? Danny Kalin, Isaiah McMorris, Deontay, why can I not remember his name? The other receiver for Bellevue West.
Hall.
That was
Davion Hall.
Davion Hall.
Davion Hall. Thank you. I had Dante Hall in my mind, and then Chiefs, and then kick returns. But that's how my brain works. Okay, so you had those 3. Not a one of them's on the roster anymore. All of those guys were early offer guys. I believe Kalin, that was like a Riley offer when he was a freshman or something like that, or a Frost. I mean, it was super early. Isaiah McMorris, I think he was probably one of the later ones. But not one of those guys are on the roster. Not one of them saw a snap. So, and it's not that Nebraska players can't play, but I think to Rhule's point, it makes sense. Like, don't feel like you have to offer them as a freshman or a sophomore, because the total package that you will get at Nebraska probably exceeds what you're going to get at Iowa State, right? Mm-hmm. So take Caprice Keith, for instance. He's committed to Iowa State, but he's still got another, year left or 2? What's his class?
He'll be a senior.
Yeah. If he blows up, right, and Nebraska wants to make a run, they could probably exceed whatever package he's getting anywhere else. So it's not like it's over. I see where he's coming from, that we don't feel like we need to be the first to offer unless it's a Cam Jurgens type, right? If it's Cam Jurgens and you're like, okay, the kid's already 6'4", 230 and has NFL measurements, like, we'll go ahead and offer him now.
Well,
but the projection guys, you don't need to mess with anymore.
What's your ability to do the following? Start a conversation, get that relationship developed, get him to camp so you get to see him for yourself, and then kind of make your decision. Does the staff and the player and the player's family or representation now feel good about one another? I mean, there's 100 steps you got to do before you move in. And I think one thing that you're going to have, and you do have with this staff and setup, is you're at least going to have communication. Here's what we think. We think you're a good ball player. Here's what we're looking for. And you're not done yet with your high school career. So you can absolutely still reach the bar we have for our recruiting requirements. Here's what you need to be able to play at Nebraska, in our opinion. And Rhule's 1,000% right. He's got to win ball games. So you can't, in this shrunken roster and sped up timetable, be wrong very often. Your eraser is now NIL versus your walk-on Makovica type. Okay, so I have no problem with Nebraska waiting as long as there's communication. And Nebraska's made efforts across the state to be good with the high school coaches and the high school programs. So it'll all take care of itself. What Sharpie said about winning first and foremost, and then you're going to have your ebbs and flows of years. You're going to have some years where you've got a Tony Veland, you've got an Eric Stokes. You're going to have some years where you have a guy like Wiegert and Zadiska. You're going to have some of those years, but it's not every year in this state. So you got to be pretty selective and then nail it when they are available.
And you give them a reason. It's the same thing with Nebraska basketball. You got to give them a reason to stay in state, because the exposure is so much greater now for Nebraska kids, boys and girls sports, that there's competition. And you can't just rely on, hey, it's old GBR. I think Frost tried the recruiting mode initially of, hey, come and help us get this turned around. Mm-hmm. Do it for GBR. And it didn't resonate with a lot of kids initially. And coaches were kind of like, I don't think that's the right place, because you have to recruit Omaha differently than the rest of the state. And that was their pitch in Omaha. And I think you have to give them a reason, okay? A reason to come to Lincoln. And the reason is we're winning. We have something. We have some evidence of this is working. Yeah. But again, back to Omaha kids, you have to give them a blueprint of, hey, look, Caleb Benning came here. And look, out of high school, he came here and look how we developed him. Omaha kid. He played on the same fields you did. He played against the same players you did. We developed him. And now look, he's a starting Rover.
Remember too, Rhule said what a year or two ago that if we offer and you turn us down, there's no coming back. Now, whether that's written in pencil and not in stone, I don't know, but it's about the open lines of communication. We like you. It's not going to be a fit, or it's not going to be a fit right now, and we wish you well, and we'll talk later, which is probably the way a lot of colleges are handling it in their home area. Not a fit right now. We've got opportunities with other players. We're going to go elsewhere for a quarterback, whatever it might be. This is the way it's going to be, but let's talk in a year. Let's talk in a couple of years. Maybe that's the situation with the Marty Brown. Nebraska didn't offer, apparently, and
they didn't.
Right, so there was no opportunity to turn down. So the door's open. We like you. We wish you well, and maybe we can talk in a year or so. There's no guarantee the kid wants to talk to them. Now, I'm just saying that in a general sense, not in the Brown situation, that the kid says, no, you didn't offer me before. I'm not going to talk to you now. I'm going elsewhere. And that's just the way college football is these days. But as long as you've got a decent relationship, there's always going to be the possibility, especially in an area like this.
I don't think you're going to take the state of Nebraska for granted. No. You can't. Like, come here, be a Husker. You grew up here. You should want to go here. And just looking at Junior's closet from junior high to high school, there's minimal Nebraska gear in it. I mean, it's just a different time of growing up compared to Elijah when you were playing ball or going to games with your family. They were still, winning at a decent level. So,
and remember back then, I said this on your show yesterday. It used to be that we don't have a scholarship for you, but you can still walk on to dear old Nebraska U, and players did that. They didn't go to Iowa State. They didn't, for the most part. There were a few that Nebraska didn't offer. They took a scholarship offer elsewhere. But a lot of players didn't get an offer, but they said, we would love to have you walk on, and they did. Because Nebraska was winning. It was getting a chance to play for Tom Osborne. It's what your community wanted because you're a small town Nebraska guy, and people were willing to pay the price to go to college to play football at Nebraska and say they were Huskers. That's from a galaxy long ago and far away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
you'll get a handful of those, but not.
They were willing to walk on if they didn't get a scholarship, or they might go to UNO. Back in the day, but that doesn't exist any longer.
Sharpie.
Well, and one quick thing here. Yeah. There is another thing. Like when I say not every kid in Nebraska should get a Nebraska scholarship, I think that's also, like Malachi Coleman should have never gotten a scholarship to Nebraska. Nebraska recruited Malachi Coleman because he was the top player in the state of Nebraska.
Pressure
and
to do
coming
it.
in when you're new as a coaching staff and the previous staff had recruited him, you feel like you have to continue that.
Okay, let's talk about that one. See, in my mind, the guys that you want to definitely offer from the state of Nebraska are the prototypes. You know, you brought up, I think, Schmidt, you brought up Veland and Stokes and got Strickland even. He was offered, but didn't play. Clester. Those dudes were monsters, right? Prototypical, like Tony Veland looked like an NFL defensive back in high school.
As a junior,
right?
As a junior.
Yeah. And think of like Amon Green looking like Chong Lee, right? Like the dude, like, come on. These were some serious athletes. And if you look at Coleman in particular, what, 6'3", 6'4", and 200, like I can understand taking a flyer on him, but I don't know about a 5'9", 170-pounder that finishes 10th in the state 100. You know, maybe not that.
The junior year film and the junior year track stats were enough to absolutely reel you in. The senior year was the problem. Where is he playing tonight? Is he hurt? Is he injured?
Yeah.
What was going on behind the scenes with the attitude, the coachability?
He stressed the hell out of Mickey Joseph.
Yeah.
I mean, Mickey Joseph was on the phone a lot. Hey, are you getting up? Are you going to work out? I mean, you know, it
makes sense.
It was, and I hope it works out for him at Minnesota, because I also think
got talent
in his situation.
Yeah,
he was one of those
talented enough to get snaps as a freshman.
Yeah. He came to Nebraska and everybody knew him. I mean, the expectations were unrealistic for him. And, you know, it's just the transition from high school to college football. I mean, I don't care if you're a Nebraska kid or anybody, that's a huge jump where it's a business. I mean, that's your job and your craft. And if, you know, stuff you get away with in high school of not running a proper route, you know, being, you know, not taking care of yourself, you know, you get exposed in college. So I think I'm fine with their high school recruiting. I would tell you one thing that that is a Nebraska centric thing, and kind of tying in Jack McAllister. So one of the things that not only with the rugby style punting that Jack McAllister was not comfortable with, they found out that he was not comfortable with the wind in Memorial Stadium, because they've spent a lot of time in the stadium this spring, I think more than they have in the past. And, you know, Eckler, who has played in Memorial Stadium, has coached in Memorial Stadium, and he knows around here what the wind is like. I mean, even Rhule talks about the wind.
This week sucked. We had 3 red flag warnings.
If you think about if the wind is such a factor, which we know it is, we know it in that stadium when you get to October and November, it's a factor. I mean,
swirling. It's like candlestick.
One of the reasons that they offered Tristan Alvano is they saw him in a state championship game in a crosswind banging 40+ field goals. I was beating the drum that if that's, you know, you talk about the wind and the elements of playing in the Big Ten and playing in October and November in your own stadium. There was a guy that was a quarterback at Gretna when they won the state championship, was throwing darts through the wind. You don't think he could do well throwing darts through the wind at the next level? So it'll be interesting if that comment of McAllister probably also didn't handle the elements very well in the spring, is if they look at guys, you know, like quarterback and specialists are the two that are going to be impacted probably the most. If that ever goes into the mindset of when you're recruiting Nebraska or around the area guys, that guys have punted and kicked in this for their entire life, you know, because that was the thing they said about Alvano is, hey, he's kicked in these elements. You know, he knows what the wind is like in Nebraska. He'll have no problems.
By the way, let's talk rugby punting, right? This is because it's the deep track show. I think if nothing else, that's what we are. We go deep track.
Crossed into the 9 o'clock hour. It's time to cut deep.
Yeah. We go deep track.
We're going to the B-sides.
Let's break down the difference between traditional punting. Let's Iowa, for instance, they get it done, right? They traditional punting. They send a punter to the league every year. Excellent special teams, similar conditions as Nebraska. Eckler comes in and decides we need to go rugby style. And I think, okay, we all know just visibly, or most of us should know visibly the difference there, right? Rugby, you get the snap, you kind of roll out to one side if you want. and then you kick it, and usually it's lower and all that, versus catch, take 2 steps, kick. But like the advantages of rugby, you can apparently only do, and Rhule alluded to it, like in the NFL, you have to wait until the ball's actually left the foot before you can release. In this case, it buys you more time to release, right? A lot more time to release. So your coverage units can get downfield faster, which means the returners have people on them a lot sooner. And then the actual punt itself, like because it's lower, it has the opportunity to roll forward, like a good, 20, 30 yards sometimes. You can have some ridiculous gains there where it's almost like a squib kick in some ways. So when you talk about all those pros and cons and in the college game, it's just like, why the hell doesn't every college do that? What is the, considering all those things, what is the advantage of the traditional way? Unless you're Iowa and you have the next, NFL punter, like that's about the only reason why you would do that, right? Like pros and cons wise, why have we never talked about this before? Why have we all been like, hey, college, like you can do this?
Well, and it's been, Nebraska's got a history too of really good punters between Cook and Cush and LaFleur, and I mean, you go down the list.
Erstad.
Yeah, Erstad.
Yeah, I was going to say, where's Erstad living over here? Come on.
You didn't have what?
Caleb Lightborn?
No.
Oh God.
How about that punt against Ohio State?
Was it who Lightburn?
See that
the one that went 7 yards, was that how far it went?
That was a kick, though, wasn't it?
That's the thing is you bring up the punt that is buried because of the upside fell down kickoff, the onside attempt.
Because the punt was the one that went straight up and it caught the wind and it landed like 15, 20 yards downfield and then it rolled backwards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember when we never had to worry about punting?
Thank you,
Nebraska.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
and the rugby style. Just go get me a dude that can get it handled. I don't care if you're a traditional punter or if you're a rugby dude, but just make it happen and down it inside the 20 more times than not.
I love it how
make somebody drive the field on you.
If
you get a really good rugby style punter, you get one of them that's what's the word? Amphibious. I kid.
Yes.
And my Dexter.
That's real.
That's real.
There's some guys down there in Australia been kicking left and right, since they were kids learning how to play rugby or Australian rules football. So maybe Nebraska is going to have somebody running around in the punt formation, going left and going right.
He's going to have a mullet, a pet kangaroo. He'll kick with both feet, and he'll lead the team in tackles.
Does Nebraska have to pay a tariff?
Oi.
Does Nebraska need to pay a tariff to the Australian?
Extra 10% on the NIL.
Hey, wait,
that's a serious question.
Foster's Australian for hangover.
Is the last Australian Brett Popwell, who was he went to Pius and was a wide receiver in Nebraska?
Number 39.
Is he the last Australian? Because reporters would ask him about Vegemite.
Cherney. What about Daniel Cherney?
Yeah, Daniel Cherney.
Oh, there you go.
Well, who was the big dude down low? Alex, the center for Doc.
Marks? Alex Marks?
March.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
he's a right player too.
I think if you got to find the right guy that's comfortable with it, that can execute it, because your coverage is geared to it. It does show you that, man, Mike Eckler is the special teams coach. What he wants, Mike Eckler gets.
Yeah. How about like James in the stream? When the ball leaves the foot, does it spin counterclockwise? Does it work? Yeah. Not sure.
Didn't Nebraska this folly of punting? I was trying to think about this yesterday. Remember William Pristip?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Didn't Nebraska have a rugby punt actually blocked?
Yeah, I think someone kind of
partially blocked.
Yeah.
Gary, there's been so many dark moments.
It was such a low kick that it got deflected.
If Eckler is able to do what he did at Tennessee, even a small portion, we won't even know what we're looking at. the special teams have been so bad for so long around here.
Oh my God.
It does make you appreciate the years of when, the DeJuan Grosses of the world, and back into the 90s when, what was there? 1 year Nebraska allowed 5 punt return yards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
it's a game changer. Thank God they've, used it as a priority to try and fix it. And they hire a guy who, he gets hired and he sends Matt Rhule a video at Johnny Rogers and says, "Hey, next year I'm going to have a guy at the Jet Award."
Good.
well, I appreciate it because we know Eckler, he's a proven commodity, but I feel like every Nebraska coach has said, "Oh no, special teams are going to get that right." Bruce Reed, for as much as we clowned him, I think Gary coined him as 450. He was an accomplished special teams guy before here, right? He did okay, but for some reason you come here and it's like it just falls apart, And did that start with Panico? How did that? Like, what happened? Why did Nebraska just? Everybody talked about it. Everybody talked about. By the way, think about Ireland Northwestern game, the onside kick that wasn't called. Like what? Like if you just fix special teams, all the things that we talk about all the time, all the analysis of the backup guards and the third string corners and whatever. If you just fix special teams for the last 10 years, like what are we talking about here? How many more bowl games is Nebraska in?
You're winning 2 to 3 more games a year, or
just that.
You're at worst a 7-5 football team. It comes down to your approach. How are you coaching it? And is the fear of God in your players? Are you treating it like the defensive side of the football or the offensive side of the football?
What about also this? And I agree with you, Schmitty, but I'll throw this into how much is it personnel?
It's a lot.
As
much as the philosophy.
Let's just rattle off guys in the last 10 years that their forte at Nebraska was special teams. I'll start. DeMornay personnel.
Yeah,
Spielman. But there and when you are really good, you stand out like a Brandon Rigoni.
Mm-hmm.
Or
second reference,
or Lance Gray. Danny Busboom Kelly's husband. Or not Lance Gray, Lance Kelly. Well, Lance Gray was a bullet.
Lance Gray was nuts.
Yeah. So, but when Nebraska's special teams have been really good, it hasn't always been the returner or the punter or place kicker that you remember. It's always that one guy that seems to be just creating havoc.
Eric Martin, Carlos Polk.
And Carlos Polk has turned into one of the most coveted special teams minds in the NFL.
And who could forget Eric Martin nearly killing a man in Stillwater?
That's from right.
Yeah.
Ed Cunningham.
But
that every day.
That's what I'm looking forward to, right? Is those days where you can like
another murder?
You're just like, oh, like who are you gonna watch on the kickoff team? Because there was always somebody that was going for scalps. And
Mark wants to see a guy get
growing up, that was Lance Gray. Who's Lance Gray going to go murder?
Yeah.
You got to have you have to have buy-in for players that understand that they can have play a valuable role on a football team, even if they are a 4 or 5 star, by the 15 snaps on special teams that you get, and understand that this is important. This isn't just getting you on the field. You can make a difference, by getting 10 yards on a punt return, for God's sake.
Not doing this all the time.
Right. I mean, Oliver Martin's career at Nebraska is cemented at the 10, right? Fair catch at the 10. Wow. Fair catch at the 10, right? But look, if you want to look at somebody and say buy into special teams, Amir Abdullah, to me is I don't want to say a poster for it, but here's a guy who was a tremendous college running back, right? And if he had played in a different era, say back in the 90s, and you compare him to LP and Amon and all that, I mean, he's right up there with his talent and ability and heart and all that. But in the NFL, it hasn't translated into being a difference-making running back. But damn it, if he hasn't played 12 years in special teams,
I know
he bought in.
He's got a niche, and
check my ego at the draft, and I'm gonna return kicks, I'm gonna return punts, whatever. I'm gonna make tackles if I have to, and I'm gonna make a lot of money at it. Well, it just can't be, hey, go out there and just fair catch it at the 10.
I think you also like the thing. The advantage Eckler has is he has a resume, so you can Google him and go, "Damn, exactly. Tennessee was returning kicks and they were blocking," and so you have a trust in that guy. So and I think special teams coaches have one of the more difficult jobs because they're taking players from offense and defense, and not everybody wants to be on special teams. But if you have a special teams coach that as a player, you know that the head coach respects, I think that's like, okay, you got to make special teams special.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Eckler has that vibe where it's cool to play on special teams, because something you were alluding to, Bill, about Amir and even J.D. Spielman, remember the whole adage was, hey, if you want to get on the field as a freshman, you got to play special teams first.
Yep.
Do it on special teams, then we'll let you go play your position. Whatever happened to that mindset? All of a sudden, there's just a hodgepodge of guys, and we go from non-starters. There are some starters. I think you got to make special teams special and cool. And I think with Eckler, they've done that. Now, we haven't heard much about, special teams during the spring. And other than McAllister's not here, they're going to go find a punter. Camden Cook will be in the mix. And then a subtle one that really got no follow-up is Tristan Alvano was not supposed to go through spring fully. And I guess he's out there and he's looked good. And John Hull has been battling an injury. But we don't know. Like we hear periodically about, hey, this is a trio of guys returning punts. We really haven't talked much about special teams this spring, whether it be Eckler or Rhule.
And Tuck asked a relevant question here that we haven't been asking either. I mean, they brought in Gaelic to come in and breathe the long snapper. How's that going? We haven't heard.
Well, you've not heard any
horror stories,
right?
Portal shopping.
No news is good news. I would hope with the guy you're giving a scholarship to be a long snapper, and that's important. And you got to be accurate, as Elijah's special team story of left nipple, right nipple. Needs which nipple do you want it?
Talking about football if you're just joining us.
Yes.
Talking about a football.
Where do you want it snapped?
Hey, with special teams,
so bad last year.
It's the mindset too that you have these receivers who may catch one or two passes a game, maybe, or you're Ja'Cory Barney and you're the favorite target and you're going to get targeted, 9-10 times a game. But if you can convince somebody to come in here and look, you're not going to be out there taking 40 snaps a game. But if you're going to be a quality punt returner, you're going to get 4 chances probably a game to return kicks. You're going to get a couple chances to return kickoffs. The ball is going to be in your hands if you are the primary return man more often, consistently, than a receiver.
Yeah.
Right? You're just going to run patterns and Dylan's going to throw someplace else. But if you dedicate yourself to the return game, you can make a difference in a game at least 4 to 6, maybe 7 times a game.
And then as a coach, you need to take the shackles off a little bit. And once you land on that person, not force them to fair catch it. That wasn't Isaiah Garcia Castaneda's idea, right? To just fair catch every single punt that
you get nervous in a tight ball game. Oh crap! What if we fumble? I.e., Iowa.
Right.
Well, and I think does the head coach, does the special teams coach have the code red, where he can? It's his philosophy, because Rhule's philosophy about returning kickoffs. I wonder if it'll change and it'll be Eckler's philosophy of, I think Rhule is more comfortable making the fair catch and, taking the ball at the 25 or whatever. If that changes with Eckler, let's and Tom Osborne was ahead of the analytics before anybody else, because he could tell you exactly if we return a kickoff and we get to this exact yard line, like the 26, we're going to score blank percentage of time. So I think now they have a special teams coach that Rhule, didn't know anything about Mike Eckler. There was a groundswell of people that know Eckler that said, this is the guy that you need to target. Whether he says no or not, you need to talk to him. And you know what? Rhule and Eckler had a conversation and Eckler was sold. And now you got a guy who I think has full control over special teams. I don't think Rhule is going to walk down the sidelines and go, Mike, I think this would be a good opportunity to run this. And we've had that in the past, where maybe the head coach has a special teams background, and so he dabbles a little bit more instead of trusting his special teams coach who's paid to be that, to know what the hell he's doing. I think he had 2 guys, a head coach and a good friend that was a special teams coach, that just seemed like they were not on the same page. And then they would be speaking different languages post-game. after Rhule would talk about special teams, and then, the times that Ed Foley would talk. So I think in this case, it's Mike Eckler's special teams, and you feel a better comfort level. Like, look at a guy like Andrew Marshall. So we know that Marshall is in the mix to return kicks, but he's not only a guy that's going to play in the defensive backfield, but he's also a guy at Idaho that returned kicks. And I'll tell you this, Dan Jackson, who was his defensive coordinator, who's now the head coach of South Dakota State, when they talked to him about Andrew Marshall, they talked to him not only about his skill set as a defensive back, but they also talked to him about what he could do in the return game. And Dan said that was kind of enlightening, because other people that were talking to Andrew, they didn't really talk about his return. Hey, you had a big return in the FCS playoffs. They were like, hey, what would you do in man-to-man coverage and all this kind of stuff? So maybe the tide is turning, and it took a big time hire to get a guy here that's going to change things and, maybe win. What if you're good in special teams? The WAR says plus 1.5, maybe 2 in the Big Ten, where the Big Ten is a good special teams conference.
I mean, it's your difference between Pinstripe, Music City, or knocking on a door in November to be playoff considered. You also have two coordinators personality-wise, with your special teams coordinator and your offensive coordinator, that if the head coach, your show, your program, yes, sir, all due respect, they're going to let the head man, because he's the boss, say his piece, but they're going to say, this is what we're doing respectfully. They have enough of a personality and belief in what they're doing to not be silent if, maybe coach wants to sprinkle in or dabble in with an idea here, though. They'll listen, but if they don't think it'll work, they'll respectfully probably try and shut it down and let me stick to what I know.
I also like what they're doing with Eckler is he's also helping with linebackers.
Sure, because he's done that for 15 years.
I mean, you got a guy that's a certified psycho. I mean, look at it was the first practice availability. Eckler was going to put on eye black. So you remember the picture where it looked like he just walked out of the coal mine?
Or the program movie? Yeah.
Yeah. So he put on eye black, and then at the last moment said, nah, I don't like this. And so he washed his face. And so that's why he looked like he had like coal dust all over his face when he was out there practicing. Yeah, that's who Mike Eckler is. I mean, the man's living out of a suitcase right now. His family hasn't fully moved from Knoxville, and he was at the Jet Awards, so I had a chance to talk to him a little bit. He is over the top about being back here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he told a side story about Will Compton was the first to contact him. That said, man, you got to come back. This is perfect for you. You have to come back. And he said, I was ready to go put on the pads after our conversation on the phone before I got involved with Rhule. And then him and Rhule talked for like a long time about philosophy. And, I think they probably shared ideas about what worked at Nebraska when he was here and what hasn't. And he's a great addition to this staff.
Sharpie, as we wind it down, Average Joe Sports Show Weekend Edition, Sunday Live, tomorrow, 10:30.
Ish.
Yeah, I'm asking, does Nebraska sweep today on the diamond? They need to.
They are consistently inconsistent.
Yep.
Yeah. 8 bombs last night. That must have been a fun game to be at least.
Remind me of Wrigley when the wind's blowing out.
Butenbach got one. I think Stone got one too last night.
Yeah, well, they were down 1-0, and then they hit back-to-back solo jacks in the bottom of the first.
Overbeek tied it up in the 8th with the solo shot too.
They're just
curious ninth inning pitching decision.
Maybe there's an element of this team that has been there from day one. They don't run the bases very well.
No, they get picked off a lot.
I mean,
he slid past second. Like what? That's hard to do. Yeah. That's hard to do.
I mean, this is trending towards not making the Big Ten tournament and being one of the bigger disappointments in Husker athletics compared to where the season began.
There's always the crown.
There is always the crown, but baseball, remember, baseball was supposed to be 5 weeks away from this coronation to lock up hosting a regional being right behind Oregon as the second best Big Ten team. And they just, one night they look like they're capable. The next night you're losing to Northwestern, who, had been run-ruled the week before. And I don't know.
Yeah, I like Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
17 walks, 27 earned runs.
Remember they beat Vanderbilt?
I know. Well, they won 2 of 3 against Oregon State. It's a team that makes no sense because it's not like they have a bunch of young guys. I mean, granted, they don't have Mason McConaughey, but still, then they say, okay, you got an offense where those guys went through it last year. There aren't many new bats in there. And they just so I can't say if they're going to sweep today. I have no idea what you're going to get. I mean, I think it would be frustrating as hell to be the head coach. You don't know what you're going to get when you go to the ballpark. I mean, look at what they did Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Tuesday night, they looked good against Creighton. The bullpen was lights out. When they needed a base hit, they got a base hit. And they won that game against Creighton, who has won 2 in a row against St. John's, who in baseball, American D1 baseball, is a 3 seed in the field of 64. And then you show up last night where you're like, okay, we got this home stretch. We play well at home. And most nights, if you score 6+ runs, you're like, we're going to win. Not last night.
Mm-hmm.
Sharpie,
I think it's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, just get in the Big Ten, but now you have no faith that they'll be able to make a run like they did last year because they just haven't proven it. And then you're going to have to take a hard look. You're going to be you're riding that up and down. And there's no guarantee that next year you'll be back and you go, oh, it happens with Will. The next year they're going to be great. This team is so far under where they should be. But I also think, and I'll use Max as an example, Max stopped listening to people. Like a lot of people were saying, hey, you should do this and you should do that at the plate. And he basically said, F it. And he just he leaned on his instincts and his training, and off he went. Mm-hmm. I think there's so many people in guys' heads, whether they be in their own dugout as coaches or outside noise, that this team, I have no idea what the identity is from day to day.
Mm-hmm. It kills them too that they don't have just a lockdown ace at the top of their staff that can get them 7 innings and buy their bullpen more rest. Right? They just don't have a top end guy. Speaking of which, Brett Sears, little update: Augusta, don't look now. 10 innings pitched, 15 Ks so far, 1.74 ERA for the Augusta Green Jackets, single A affiliate for the Atlanta Braves. So I'm predicting next year he'll be up there with Schwelly.
That's a big jump.
Yep. You heard it here.
Sharpie, enjoy your Saturday, bud. Have a good Easter. We'll holler tomorrow.
Hey, I will. Any word on if the Indiana softball coach who went ballistic last night at Doleman got suspended or anything?
I haven't seen that, but I saw the footage. I haven't seen if the suspensions come down, but I saw the footage.
What did he or she do? I missed it.
I was waiting for Wally Backman to army crawl out of the dugout with the rosin bag and toss it like a grenade.
There was a play at the plate. From an umpire's point of view, umpire was not in perfect position to see, and they're moving, which always makes things hard. You want to set yourself. And it was like a swipe tag from
the heel, right?
On the heel, on the Indiana base runner. She's called out. It's questionable whether or not the tag was actually made, and Indiana's head coach went ballistic. It should be noted.
Challenges.
I saw the Indiana softball team last night at the Scarlet Hotel after the Stars game. Went up to the rooftop bar for one, and they're all eating their team meal in there, and they all seem to be in a pretty chipper mood. So
yeah, because they won 6-2.
She was out.
Elijah.
She was out. Got her on the heel. She was out. They had to restrain her. It was quite the show.
Oh, she put on a show.
Yeah. Proud of my guys,
Breaking
Max
news.
Meyer, on the call last night, and he nailed it. So it was good all around. So there you go.
And then Rhonda got tossed as well.
Yeah.
The Indiana softball team likes to get wasted on game weekends.
Wow.
Breaking news. Yep.
They
Rooftop
were
bar.
They were not at the rooftop bar. They're in the little room next door.
Oh,
Elijah likes to get wasted after. Come on.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
It's never a good sign for the umpire's performance whenever both head coaches get tossed. I'll just throw that out there from an umpiring point of view. If both head coaches are getting tossed, you got to look inward as an umpire.
But Rhonda was.
They should have just reviewed it.
Clerical error, visiting the circle twice in one inning. That's the. So it wasn't a
clerical error.
Well,
Wanda, you've got to type. You gotta go.
It wasn't the Don Zimmer tribute. So,
yeah.
Has Bolt been thrown out of a game this year?
No, he's
maybe today. If maybe we need to have a moment today.
Remember when Van Horn got tossed against Texas? They got screwed at a play at the plate. God, it might have been year 2 or 3 in Nebraska's battle in Texas for the Big 12 title, and the Huskers get hosed at home. Bang bang play, and I think old DVH took a batting helmet and just freaking spiked it at the home plate umpire and got ejected there. And that's like the only time I remember Van Horn getting tossed.
Yeah, I know Will is fiery, and you're supposed to be the reflection of your team, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. Maybe Will needs to have an episode. Maybe we have to have something from Bull Durham. Maybe the whole team, we get word they have a good day today, because before they went out to BP, he got everybody in the shower and threw bats in there and batting helmets.
Mm-hmm. It works.
Live
chicken, Jobu's rum, something.
They got to do. Hey, they got to do something, man. If they're not in Omaha in late May,
get tossed in game 1. Come back for game 2.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah,
Sharpie, we'll see you tomorrow, bud.
Yes, enjoy your Saturday, boys.
All right, there you go. Gary Sharp, the Iron Horse. Kraynak, be good, brother.
You as well. I'm going to go check out that second game today after the boys got a doubleheader in CB. So it's a lot of traveling throughout the, southwest Iowa, southeast Nebraska.
Are you playing at the fields next to the gentleman establishment or no?
I don't think so. It's Roberts. It's more like near TJ, I think.
Okay.
Broadway. So I'm going to cruise Broadway afterwards in my Trans Am.
Good work.
So that'll be.
Make sure the T-tops are off.
Yep. I'm going to listen to Quiet Riot tapes. And
you got to go Journey.
That's too soft, bro. That's too soft. Throw my old styles out the windows. And
Kraynak,
that's what people used to do on Broadway. Yeah.
Dude, after the
TV's great.
After some of those Reavers games, you taking me to downtown Council Bluffs was always an enjoyable time.
And you lived to tell the tale?
I did. Yeah. I tried not to a couple of times, but Kraynak bailed me out.
CB gets a bad rap. CB's great. I like CB. They get like hundreds of millions of dollars pumped into the city every year via the Iowa West Foundation, which is from the casinos. And so it's like this town is 60 to 70,000 that just gets flushed with cash and doesn't even know what to do with it half the time, right? Like they're just like, why don't we make big iron sculptures and put them on top of the interstate bridge? You know what I'm talking about? When you're driving by and you're why is Edward Scissorhands? What is happening here? Yeah. But it's because they got this influx of money, and if you can give a local iron artist some work, I guess you do it. I don't know.
Kraynak, have a good day of baseball, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Billy D, tomorrow.
It'll be good.
All right.
Yep. Happy Easter to everybody.
Yep, you too. Elijah,
Happy Easter.
Behave, big cat.
Happy Easter, go Stars.
Yeah.
Not Dallas. Stars. I'm an Avs guy, so screw the Dallas Stars, but Lincoln Stars. 2 thumbs up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Say it, Kraynak.
Good. Godspeed. All right.